Your soulmate's love wasn't loyal, the cheating will shock you. Stay with me, and don't turn away from this just yet, because what you're about to hear isn't meant to hurt you, it's meant to wake you up gently. There are moments in life when truth arrives not to destroy us, but to finally stop us from destroying ourselves through doubt, confusion, and self-blame. This is one of those moments. For a long time, you sensed something wasn't right. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way you could easily explain to someone else. It lived in the pauses. In the slight changes in tone. In the way their energy felt different even when their words stayed the same. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself you were overthinking. You reminded yourself how deeply you loved them, how strong the bond felt, how soulmate connections are supposed to feel intense and complicated. But deep down, something in you knew. This isn't about catching someone in the act. It's about realizing that loyalty isn't just physical. It's emotional. It's energetic. It's about where someone goes when they're not with you. It's about who they confide in, who they turn to, who they imagine a future with when things get hard. Your soulmate didn't wake up one day and decide to betray you. It happened slowly. Quietly. In moments where they chose distraction instead of honesty. Comfort instead of courage. Validation instead of commitment. And that's why this truth shocks you. Not because cheating happened, but because it happened while you were still trying to hold everything together. You replay moments now and suddenly they look different. That unexplained distance. That defensiveness over small things. That sudden need for privacy. At the time, you made excuses for them. You told yourself they were stressed. Confused. Healing. You gave them the benefit of the doubt while quietly doubting yourself. That's the part that hurts the most. Not just that they weren't loyal, but that you stopped trusting your own intuition to protect the connection. Your love was real. Your effort was real. Your loyalty was real. And that's why the betrayal cuts so deep. You weren't careless with your heart. You were intentional. You believed in something sacred between you. You believed that a soulmate connection meant mutual respect, even in moments of temptation. What you're realizing now is that soulmates are still human. And humans don't always rise to the level of love they're given. They didn't cheat because you weren't enough. They cheated because they didn't know how to sit with the depth of what you offered. True intimacy requires accountability. It requires choosing one person even when attention is available elsewhere. It requires integrity when no one is watching. They failed that test. And here's the hardest truth to accept: the cheating wasn't a single event. It was a pattern of small disloyalties that added up over time. Emotional boundaries crossed. Conversations hidden. Feelings minimized. Each choice may have felt insignificant to them in the moment, but together they created a breach you felt long before you understood it. You weren't imagining things. Your body knew before your mind did. The tension. The anxiety. The way you felt like you were competing with something you couldn't see. That wasn't insecurity. It was your nervous system responding to inconsistency. You loved someone who was divided. Part of them wanted the safety, depth, and devotion you offered. Another part wanted escape, novelty, and validation without responsibility. Instead of facing that inner conflict honestly, they chose secrecy. That choice is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their capacity. You might be asking yourself now why you didn't leave sooner. Why you stayed. Why you kept hoping things would shift. Be gentle with yourself. You stayed because you believed in love. Because you saw potential. Because you trusted the connection. Those are not flaws. They are human strengths. But strength without boundaries becomes self-sacrifice. This moment isn't here to shame you. It's here to return your power. Cheating shatters trust, but it also shatters illusions. And as painful as that is, illusions breaking is often the first step toward freedom. You no longer have to question why you felt uneasy. You no longer have to twist yourself into understanding behavior that never aligned with your values. Now you see it clearly. And clarity, even when it hurts, is a form of protection. You may feel anger rising. Sadness. Grief. Even disbelief. Let those emotions move through you. They are valid. Betrayal doesn't just end a relationship, it disrupts your sense of reality. It makes you question memories, promises, and even your own judgment. But listen closely, this betrayal does not define you. It defines a moment where someone failed to honor what was offered to them. It defines a moment where love was mishandled, not because it wasn't valuable, but because it was. Your soulmate connection was real. That's why the loss hurts. But real connection doesn't excuse real harm. You are not required to minimize what happened to preserve the idea of soulmates. A soulmate who betrays trust still causes damage. And you are allowed to acknowledge that without invalidating your own experience. This is the beginning of truth, not the end of your story. Right now, the shock is loud. Your heart is trying to catch up to what your intuition has known for a while. Don't rush yourself through this. Don't force forgiveness. Don't force understanding. Let yourself feel what you feel without judgment. Healing doesn't start with acceptance. It starts with honesty. Honesty about what hurt. Honesty about what you deserved. Honesty about what you can no longer tolerate. This chapter isn't about revenge or confrontation. It's about reclaiming yourself. About remembering that loyalty isn't rare because you ask for too much, it's rare because many people don't know how to offer it. You do. And that means your love belongs somewhere it will be honored. This is only the beginning of this story. The truth has surfaced, but the meaning of it is still unfolding. What comes next is not about them, it's about you. About how you rebuild trust with yourself. About how you redefine love without betrayal at its center. Stay with me. Because the most important part isn't what they did. It's what you choose now, knowing the truth. Stay with me, because what comes next is heavier, but it's also where the truth begins to separate pain from power. This is the part people rush through, the part they try to skip by forgiving too fast or blaming themselves too deeply. Don't skip this. This is where your heart starts to understand what really happened, not just emotionally, but on a soul level. After the shock settles, a different kind of pain shows up. Quieter. Deeper. It's not the explosion anymore, it's the slow ache. The kind that sits with you in silence. The kind that shows up when you're alone, when the world is quiet, when there's no distraction left. This pain doesn't scream. It asks questions. How long was it happening? How much of what I believed was real? Was I ever truly chosen? These questions are normal. They don't mean you're weak. They mean your mind is trying to rebuild a reality that was cracked without your consent. One of the hardest parts of discovering infidelity, especially in a soulmate connection, is the way it rewrites memories. Moments that once felt warm now feel suspicious. Words that once felt sincere now echo differently. You start scanning the past, searching for the exact moment things changed, as if finding it will somehow make the pain more manageable. But here's the truth your heart needs to hear: the moment things changed had nothing to do with you. The shift didn't begin when you became less. It began when they became divided. When they started seeking pieces of themselves outside the connection instead of bringing their confusion into it. Cheating is not a failure of love on the betrayed person's part. It is a failure of integrity on the betrayer's part. They didn't betray you because you lacked something. They betrayed you because they lacked the courage to be honest when they felt tempted, confused, or dissatisfied. Instead of choosing transparency, they chose secrecy. Instead of choosing accountability, they chose escape. And escape always leaves wreckage behind. You may notice now how much emotional labor you were doing before the truth came out. How often you tried to reconnect. How many conversations you initiated. How much patience you extended. You weren't imagining the imbalance, you were compensating for it. Your body knew something was off long before your mind accepted it. That anxiety you felt? That wasn't insecurity. That was your intuition responding to inconsistency. The nights you felt uneasy for no clear reason? That was your nervous system picking up on a fracture in trust. You weren't crazy. You weren't needy. You weren't too much. You were responding to betrayal before you had language for it. That realization can bring anger. Let it. Anger is not the enemy here. Anger is the part of you that knows a boundary was crossed. It's the part of you that recognizes injustice. What matters is not whether anger shows up, but whether you listen to what it's protecting. Anger says, "This wasn't okay." Anger says, "My loyalty mattered." Anger says, "I deserved honesty." Don't shame that voice. It's standing up for you. At the same time, you may feel waves of sadness that feel almost unbearable. Sadness not just for what happened, but for what you thought you had. For the future you imagined. For the version of them you believed in. That grief is real. You're not just grieving a person, you're grieving an idea, a promise, a sense of safety. That loss deserves space. You don't need to be strong right now. Strength will come later. Right now, truth is more important than strength. Let yourself feel the weight of what was lost without rushing to make sense of it. Another painful layer begins to surface around this time: self-blame. You may start asking yourself what you missed, what you could have done differently, whether being more attentive, more understanding, more patient would have changed things. This is where betrayal tries to turn inward, where pain tries to convince you that you were the problem. Listen carefully. If loyalty depended on you being perfect, it was never loyalty to begin with. Healthy love doesn't require constant self-improvement to prevent betrayal. It requires honesty from both sides. If someone is tempted, confused, or unhappy, the responsibility is to communicate, not to deceive. You did not fail to keep them loyal. They failed to stay accountable. That distinction matters more than you realize. Your heart may still feel pulled toward them. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means attachment doesn't dissolve on command. You invested time, emotion, vulnerability. Of course, part of you still longs for the connection. Don't judge that part of yourself. Attachment is not consent to mistreatment. You can miss someone and still know they hurt you. You can love someone and still choose not to tolerate betrayal. Both truths can exist at the same time. One of the most confusing aspects of infidelity is how it fractures trust in your own judgment. You may start questioning your instincts in other areas of life. You may wonder if you can trust yourself again. This is one of betrayal's deepest wounds, not just breaking trust between two people, but breaking trust within yourself. This is where healing truly begins. Not by focusing on them, but by rebuilding your relationship with yourself. Start by telling yourself the truth: you loved sincerely. You showed up. You were loyal. Those qualities didn't disappear just because someone failed to honor them. They still live in you. They still define you. What changes now is not who you are, but what you allow. You are learning, painfully but clearly, that love without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. That loyalty without reciprocity becomes self-abandonment. That understanding without honesty becomes exhaustion. These lessons hurt, but they also sharpen your self-respect. You may feel torn between wanting answers and wanting distance. Wanting closure but also wanting to run. That conflict is normal. Closure doesn't always come from explanations. Sometimes it comes from accepting that someone showed you who they were, even if you didn't want to see it that way. You don't need every detail to validate your pain. Knowing enough is enough. Another hard truth you may be facing: even if they regret what they did, regret does not undo damage. Apologies don't automatically restore trust. Remorse doesn't equal readiness to change. Change requires consistent behavior over time, not words spoken in fear of loss. You are allowed to take that seriously. You are allowed to slow everything down. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to choose yourself without guilt. You don't owe immediate forgiveness. You don't owe understanding. You don't owe access to your healing process. What you owe is honesty with yourself. Ask yourself gently, can I feel safe here again? Not hopeful. Not nostalgic. Safe. Safety is the foundation of love. Without it, no amount of chemistry or history can hold things together. This realization may bring a deep sadness, but also relief. Because once you stop trying to make something unsafe feel secure, your body can finally rest. Rest is part of healing. There will be moments when you want to reach out. Moments when loneliness feels louder than self-respect. Moments when you miss the familiar, even if it hurt. When those moments come, don't fight them. Observe them. They pass. Healing is not linear. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you'll feel broken again. that doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're human. Each time you choose not to betray yourself the way you were betrayed, you heal a little more. Each time you remind yourself that loyalty is a value you carry, not something you beg for, you reclaim power. Each time you choose clarity over confusion, you step closer to peace. This chapter is painful, yes. But it is also clarifying. The truth has stripped away illusions that were costing you more than you realized. What remains now is real, even if it's raw. Stay with yourself through this. Because the story doesn't end with betrayal. It transforms with what you do next. Stay with me, because this part is quieter, deeper, and more personal than anything before it. This is the stage where the pain stops being about what they did and starts becoming about what you now understand. It's where the noise fades and the truth settles into your bones, changing how you see love, loyalty, and yourself. After the anger and the shock, after the endless replaying of memories and conversations, something shifts. You start getting tired, not physically, but emotionally. Tired of carrying questions that have no clean answers. Tired of trying to understand a choice that wasn't yours. Tired of holding pain that doesn't actually belong to you. That exhaustion is not weakness. It's the beginning of letting go. You realize you can't think your way out of betrayal. You can't analyze it until it makes sense, because cheating doesn't come from logic, it comes from disconnection. From someone being unwilling or unable to face themselves honestly. And no amount of your intelligence, empathy, or love could have fixed that for them. This is where self-compassion begins to matter more than explanation. You start to notice how harsh you've been with yourself since the truth came out. The way you replay moments, criticizing your past self for not seeing it sooner. The way you wonder why you ignored certain signs. The way you question your worth in subtle, painful ways. Be gentle here. You didn't ignore the signs because you were foolish. You ignored them because you were hopeful. Because you loved deeply. Because you believed in the connection and wanted it to be real. Those are not flaws, they are human strengths. They only became wounds because someone else mishandled them. You stayed because you saw potential. You trusted because you valued loyalty. You loved because that's who you are. None of that makes you responsible for someone else's betrayal. At this stage, you may also notice something unexpected. Moments of missing them that feel confusing and even shameful. How can you miss someone who hurt you so deeply? How can your heart still reach for someone who broke your trust? This doesn't mean you're weak. It means attachment doesn't disappear just because truth arrives. Bonds formed through intimacy don't dissolve instantly. Your nervous system remembers closeness even when your mind knows it was unsafe. Don't punish yourself for this. Missing someone is not the same as wanting them back. It's your body releasing what it grew used to. And release takes time. What matters is what you do with that feeling. You can acknowledge it without acting on it. You can feel it without letting it guide your choices. You can let it pass without turning it into self-betrayal. That restraint is strength you didn't know you had. You also begin to see the difference between remorse and change more clearly now. At first, an apology might have felt like relief. Like maybe the pain could soften if they truly understood what they did. But as time passes, you realize words alone don't rebuild trust. Trust is rebuilt through behavior, through consistency, through transparency over time. Anything less is just damage control. This realization hurts, but it also protects you. Because it stops you from clinging to promises instead of patterns. It helps you see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. You're learning to observe without romanticizing. That's a powerful skill. You might also notice how this betrayal has changed how you view loyalty itself. Before, loyalty felt like something mutual and assumed. Now, you understand it's a choice people make daily, especially when no one is watching. Loyalty is revealed not in grand gestures, but in quiet decisions. And that understanding reshapes your standards. You no longer want love that feels exciting but unstable. You no longer want passion that requires blindness. You no longer want connection that costs you your peace. Your nervous system is recalibrating. You're beginning to crave calm, safety, and honesty more than intensity. That shift may feel strange at first, especially if chaos once felt like love. But it's a sign of healing. You're outgrowing survival mode relationships. This stage also brings grief in a different form. Not the sharp grief of discovery, but the slow grief of acceptance. Accepting that the relationship you thought you had was not fully real. Accepting that someone you trusted made choices that excluded you. Accepting that love, no matter how deep, does not guarantee loyalty. This grief deserves respect. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you believed. And belief is not something to be ashamed of. As you grieve, you may feel moments of emptiness. Spaces where the relationship once lived. Time that feels strange without the emotional focus you once gave them. This emptiness can be frightening, but it's also a doorway. Because emptiness is where you begin to return to yourself. You start to notice what you enjoy when you're not managing someone else's emotions. What brings you calm? What makes you feel grounded? What parts of yourself were quieted while you tried to hold the relationship together? You are meeting yourself again. And that meeting is not dramatic. It's gentle. Familiar. Almost like coming home to a version of you that was waiting patiently in the background. You may also notice that your tolerance for dishonesty has dropped sharply. Small inconsistencies bother you more now. Half-truths feel heavier. Avoidance stands out clearly. This isn't because you've become cynical, it's because your awareness has sharpened. Betrayal removes illusions. And while that loss hurts, it also brings clarity that will protect you moving forward. You're no longer impressed by words alone. You look for alignment between what someone says and what they do. You listen to your body more than their explanations. You value consistency over charm. These changes don't make you closed. They make you wise. There may be days when you feel strong and days when the pain resurfaces unexpectedly. A song. A memory. A place. Healing doesn't move in a straight line. Don't use the return of pain as evidence that you're not progressing. Pain revisiting doesn't mean you're stuck. It means something is still leaving. Each wave that passes takes a little more of the wound with it. You are also learning how to forgive yourself. Not all at once, but in moments. Forgiving yourself for staying. Forgiving yourself for hoping. Forgiving yourself for loving someone who wasn't capable of loving you with integrity at that time. Self-forgiveness is the bridge between pain and peace. You don't need to rush it. You just need to keep walking toward it. One day, you will notice that the betrayal no longer defines your mornings. That it doesn't sit in your chest the same way. That you can think about the relationship without your body tightening. That day will arrive quietly, without announcement. And when it does, you'll realize something profound. The cheating did not break you. It clarified you. It showed you what you value. It showed you what you will no longer accept. It showed you the depth of your capacity to love, and the importance of protecting it. That knowledge stays with you. You are not the same person who was betrayed. You are someone who survived betrayal without becoming bitter, who learned without hardening, who chose self-respect over self-destruction. And that matters. The story is no longer about what they lost. It's about what you gained: clarity, strength, discernment, and a deeper relationship with yourself. This chapter is still unfolding, but you are no longer lost inside it. You are standing in it, aware, grounded, and slowly reclaiming your life. And that is where real healing begins. Stay with me here, because this part is where the pain stops being the center of the story and becomes the background of your growth. It's not that the hurt disappears overnight. It's that it no longer controls you. This is the phase where you begin to live again, not in spite of what happened, but with a deeper understanding of yourself because of it. You may notice that the betrayal no longer feels sharp every single moment. Some days it's quiet. Some days it barely shows up at all. And then there are days when it returns unexpectedly, like a wave you didn't see coming. That doesn't mean you're healing wrong. It means you're human. Healing is not the absence of pain. It's the ability to hold pain without losing yourself to it. At this stage, you begin to recognize something important. You survived something that once felt impossible to survive. There was a time when the thought of losing them, of discovering the truth, of facing life without the version of the future you imagined felt unbearable. And yet here you are. Breathing. Functioning. Living. Slowly finding your footing again. That realization changes how you see yourself. You are stronger than you thought. More resilient than you knew. More capable of rebuilding than you ever gave yourself credit for. You start to trust yourself again, not just in love, but in life. You trust that if something falls apart, you will not fall apart with it. You trust that even when your heart breaks, it does not disappear. It adapts. It learns. It heals. One of the most profound shifts happening now is in how you relate to honesty. Before, honesty was something you offered generously, often assuming it would be returned in the same way. Now, you understand that honesty is not guaranteed, it's a choice. And you are far more intentional about who you give access to your inner world. This doesn't make you closed off. It makes you selective. You no longer confuse openness with availability. You no longer feel obligated to explain yourself endlessly. You no longer chase transparency from people who have shown you they prefer hiding. Instead, you observe. You watch how people show up when things are uncomfortable. You notice who takes responsibility and who deflects. You pay attention to consistency instead of charm. This awareness didn't come from books or advice. It came from lived experience. From pain that taught you discernment. And discernment is a form of self-love. You may also notice that your capacity for empathy has changed. You still understand others deeply, but you no longer use that understanding to excuse harm. You can see someone's wounds without volunteering to bleed for them. You can acknowledge someone's struggle without accepting their betrayal as collateral damage. That boundary is new. And it's healthy. There was a time when you believed that loving someone meant staying through anything. That loyalty meant endurance. That forgiveness meant erasing your own hurt. Now you understand that love without boundaries is not love, it's self-abandonment. This realization doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. You also start to notice how your body feels different now. Less tense. Less hypervigilant. You're not constantly scanning for signs of danger in relationships. You're not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Your nervous system is slowly learning that it's okay to relax again. That takes time. Your body held the betrayal before your mind fully understood it. So it will take time for your body to trust safety again. Be patient with that process. When you feel guarded, don't shame yourself. When you feel cautious, honor it. Those are protective responses learning when they can soften. Another shift happens quietly during this phase. You stop wanting revenge. Not because what they did was okay, but because you no longer want to stay emotionally tied to the harm. Revenge would keep them at the center of your emotional world. And you're done giving them that much power. You want peace more than justice now. You want clarity more than closure. You want alignment more than answers. That doesn't mean you excuse what happened. It means you refuse to let it define your future. You may still wonder sometimes if they regret what they did. If they understand the depth of the pain they caused. If they miss you the way you miss the version of them you thought existed. Those questions are normal. But you're no longer waiting for those answers to move forward. You're moving forward because you deserve to. You're also learning that closure is something you give yourself, not something someone else hands you. Closure comes when you accept reality without needing it to be fair. When you stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" and start asking, "Why did I accept less than I deserved?" That question changes everything. It shifts the focus from their failure to your awakening. And with that awakening comes a deeper sense of self-respect. You begin to feel proud of yourself, not in an arrogant way, but in a quiet, grounded way. Proud that you didn't numb yourself. Proud that you didn't become bitter. Proud that you faced the pain instead of running from it. That pride is earned. You also begin to redefine what a soulmate truly means to you. Before, soulmate may have meant intensity, chemistry, destiny. Now, it means safety, honesty, consistency, and mutual respect. You no longer romanticize suffering as proof of depth. You no longer believe that love has to hurt to be real. Real love feels safe. That understanding will guide every connection you form from now on. You may notice that you're less interested in dramatic love stories. Less impressed by big words and empty promises. More drawn to people who are steady, accountable, and emotionally present. That shift may feel unfamiliar at first, but it's a sign that your heart is healing. You're choosing peace over chaos now. There may be moments when loneliness shows up. Not because you want them back, but because you're adjusting to a new emotional landscape. That loneliness is temporary. It's the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Don't rush to fill it. Let it teach you. In that space, you'll rediscover parts of yourself that were quieted by the relationship. Your creativity. Your independence. Your intuition. Your joy. You'll remember what it feels like to live without constantly monitoring someone else's emotional state. That freedom is priceless. You are also learning how to trust again, not blindly, but wisely. You're learning that trust is built slowly, through actions, not declarations. You're learning to give trust in layers, not all at once. And that approach will protect your heart without closing it. This is emotional maturity. And it didn't come cheap. It came through heartbreak, disillusionment, and deep self-reflection. But it has given you something powerful: choice. You now choose who gets access to you. You choose what behavior you tolerate. You choose relationships that feel mutual, not draining. That choice is the real gift hidden inside this pain. One day, you'll look back and realize that this betrayal, as devastating as it was, redirected your life towards something more aligned. It forced you to grow in ways comfort never would have. It stripped away illusions so you could build something real. That doesn't mean you're grateful for the betrayal. It means you're grateful for who you became after it. You are no longer defined by what happened to you. You are defined by how you rose. And as you continue forward, carrying this wisdom with you, you'll find that love shows up differently. Healthier. Calmer. More honest. You'll recognize it not by intensity, but by how safe it feels in your body. That's when you'll know you've healed. Not because the pain is gone, but because it no longer runs your life. And that is where your new chapter truly begins. Stay with me, because this is the part where everything finally settles into truth, not the dramatic kind, not the kind that comes with confrontation or answers from them, but the quiet truth that takes root inside you and changes how you live. This is where healing stops being something you work on and starts being something you live from. By now, you've noticed that the betrayal no longer defines every thought. It doesn't greet you the moment you wake up. It doesn't sit as heavily in your chest throughout the day. When it appears, it no longer knocks the air out of you. It arrives like a memory, not a wound. And that difference matters more than you realize. You've crossed an invisible line. There was a version of you who lived in reaction, reacting to their mood, their distance, their affection, their silence. Your nervous system was trained to stay alert, to anticipate shifts, to prepare for disappointment even while hoping for closeness. That version of you was tired. Always bracing. Always adjusting. That version is resting now. You are no longer emotionally on call for someone who couldn't protect your heart. You are no longer waiting for explanations that would never fully satisfy you. You are no longer imagining alternate versions of the past where things turned out differently if only you had done more, said less, waited longer. You've accepted something incredibly difficult and incredibly freeing: you did your part. You showed up honestly. You loved fully. You were loyal in ways that mattered. What happened next was not yours to control. This acceptance doesn't feel like defeat. It feels like relief. Because once you stop fighting reality, your energy returns to you. And with that energy comes presence. You're more present in your own life now. In small moments. In conversations. In solitude. You're not half there anymore, mentally tethered to someone else's choices. You belong to yourself again. One of the most surprising changes is how differently you experience peace. Before, peace felt conditional. It came when things were good between you and them. It depended on reassurance, attention, signs of loyalty. Now, peace is internal. It doesn't disappear when someone else is uncertain. It doesn't collapse when plans change or messages go unanswered. Peace has become something you carry. And because you carry it, you protect it. You don't rush into emotional intimacy anymore. You don't give access to your inner world just because someone is charming or intense. You let people reveal themselves over time. You watch how they handle honesty, accountability, and discomfort. This isn't fear. This is wisdom. You've learned that love is not about potential, it's about patterns. Not about words, but about consistency. Not about intensity, but about safety. And safety has become non-negotiable for you. That shift changes who you attract. You may notice that people who thrive on chaos, ambiguity, or emotional games feel less appealing now. Their energy exhausts you. You no longer feel drawn to fixing, saving, or proving yourself. Instead, you're drawn to steadiness. To people who show up clearly. To connections that don't require constant interpretation. This doesn't mean your heart has closed. It means it's protected. You still feel deeply. You still love music, moments, laughter, intimacy. You still believe in connection. But you no longer chase it at the cost of your dignity. You no longer confuse longing with compatibility. You've separated desire from discernment. That's a powerful evolution. There are moments when you think about them, not with longing, not with anger, but with distance. You can see them more clearly now. Their patterns. Their limitations. Their choices. You can acknowledge the love you felt without needing to rewrite the truth. You don't need them to admit anything anymore. You already know enough. And that knowing is calm. You may still feel sadness for what could have been, but it no longer feels personal. It feels like grief for a story that wasn't meant to continue. You honor it, and then you let it go. Not forcefully. Gently. Letting go has become an act of self-respect. You've also learned how to sit with yourself in ways you couldn't before. Silence doesn't scare you now. Solitude doesn't feel like punishment. You enjoy your own company more. You trust your own thoughts. You listen to your intuition without second-guessing it. That relationship, with yourself, is the most important one you've rebuilt. And because of it, you're no longer afraid of love. You're afraid of losing yourself again. That fear isn't limiting. It's protective. It ensures that the next time you open your heart, you do so with awareness. With boundaries. With mutuality. You won't give your loyalty to someone who treats it casually. You won't stay in a connection that requires you to doubt yourself constantly. You've learned that love should expand you, not shrink you. As time passes, you'll notice something else: gratitude. Not for the betrayal, but for the clarity it forced. For the lessons it carved into you. For the strength it revealed. For the standards it refined. You're grateful that you didn't become bitter. You're grateful that you didn't close your heart entirely. You're grateful that you chose healing over hardness. That gratitude doesn't erase the pain, it transforms it. You are no longer the person who was blindsided by betrayal. You are someone who faced truth, survived it, and grew from it without losing compassion. That balance is rare. You carry it now in how you speak, how you listen, how you love. People feel it when they're around you. They sense your groundedness. Your self-respect. Your calm confidence. You don't need to announce your boundaries, your energy communicates them. You don't beg to be chosen anymore. You choose. And that choice shapes your future in ways you can't fully see yet, but you can feel. It feels lighter. Cleaner. More aligned. One day, love will meet you where you are now. Not in chaos. Not in secrecy. Not in half-truths. But in openness, loyalty, and mutual care. And when it does, you'll recognize it not by butterflies or intensity, but by how safe your body feels. Until then, you're not waiting. You're living. You're building a life that doesn't revolve around someone else's decisions. You're creating space for joy, connection, and peace that doesn't depend on anyone else's behavior. That is the real ending to this chapter. Not closure from them. Closure from within. And from this place, everything you build next will be stronger, healthier, and deeply aligned with who you've become.